So I'm at Table Rock this week. It's the middle of December. Water temps, I think, in about around 50 degrees. And we're gonna look for deep fish all week. I'm sure we can catch them other ways, but I just want to find shad and try to catch some fish that are chasing shad. So, you know, they've been back in the creeks about halfway back for about a month now, and I think they're starting to move out towards the main lake. But we'll find out. You know, this past weekend there was a little tournament that took 18.5 plus 17.5 2-day tournament to win, and those guys had a 6-pounder the first day, and it came out about 70 foot of water, I think. But just seems like a lot of, you know, good sized fish are down there pretty deep chasing shad, and I want to see if we can go figure that out, try to catch some. Yeah, we're gonna go looking and see if we can't find some. Gonna look for shad, just figure out kind of where they're at first, if they're on the main lake, if they're on the creeks, where they're at in the creeks, stuff like that. So right now I'm just idling around, looking at my graphs, looking for bait mainly. Typically in areas that you find a lot of bait, especially if you're looking on a deep drop off or somewhere that goes into the main river channel, something like that. If you find a lot of bait there, then there's likely going to be fish there with them. So right now I'm just idling on it's kind of just a drop off where a steep bank kind of meets the channel, and there's 2 points on either side of this short bank. So right now I'm just idling, checking to see if there's anything down here. There's a couple trees, a little bit of timber. All right, so here I'm starting to see quite a bit of bait down there in about 80 foot, and it seems like the bigger largemouth are down there in about that depth. So yeah, there's a big school right there from 60 to 80 actually, and they're sitting over, you know, 160 to 100 to 160 probably. So we're gonna go ahead and mark that and then make a couple drops on it just to see what's down there. Whole school of them down there. Got this one to react. There's a great big school of them. There's a whole bunch more. So I'm gonna try to get back in there real quick. There's not a bad one. Just saw him schooling up here in about 40 foot, and he was about, you know, 10 foot deep, and he bit pretty quick. Quality's pretty good here. They're all the same size, anywhere from, you know, 2.5. They're all about 2.5, which is pretty good spots. This one has a couple little shad in his throat that are about 2 inches long. They're pretty small.
boy. Ooh. Ooh.
Just switched to a swim bait, trying to get them up in the water column a little bit higher. They're eating pretty small. It's pretty small shad, and it's a pretty good smallie there. They just busted right over there.
Oh.
Just found some bait, kind of in the mouth of this little creek, and found a school of them chasing, and that one ate a Rapala jigging Rap pretty good. So I've been looking and looking, fishing lots of different schools, and finally this one actually seems like it has a lot of bass in it. The other one seemed like they had a lot of bass too, but they just wouldn't bite, or there wouldn't be a ton of bass chasing a certain school. But this looks like a healthy school of bass down there size wise, so yeah, we'll see if we can get some more like that. From the same school, I just caught the largemouth. Nice little spot. There's a school of like 5 of them, and they came up and I don't know if you guys saw that, but I've never seen that happen before. So I was just holding that fish, and this shad just like shot out of his mouth. I guess that's probably because his stomach was a little pressurized and shot it out, but that was kind of funny. Largemouth came after, and I sped it up, made him react to it. So it seemed like it was pretty easy to find fish. For the most part, it was easy to find shad, find some bass with them. But it was kind of hard to get them to bite sometimes. I would find, pretty large schools of shad in an area where there's a lot of schools of shad. And there would be bass, underneath or in each one of them. And, I'd put my bait through there, and I threw 7 different baits. I'd throw different colors through the middle of them, and a lot of times they would come up to it or just barely mouth it and then leave it alone. Like, they would be interested for a second and then decide they weren't interested anymore. But then there was some places where it was the opposite. Like, you drop down and as soon as the bait got to them, they would eat it. And so, it just seemed like it was kind of hard to find those places where they would eat it better. And I don't know if that's because people have been fishing there and they've seen baits, or the shad are so small that they're inch and a half shad sometimes, especially the ones that got spit out on my boat today. There was a bunch of like inch and a half shad. So I feel like that has a factor to do with it. And I don't know, in the places where they would eat it quicker, there were more bass. So more competition made the fishing better. Because in the areas where there was a lot of shad and just a couple bass, that's where they wouldn't bite. And now that I'm thinking about it, they had all those shad to choose from, and they don't have to compete with each other to get them. So they're real picky. But the ones where there was a lot of shad, but there was also a lot of bass, and there'd be more schools of bass more than individuals. The schools of bass would eat better than the individual ones would. So that's what I've been looking for, is where there's more bass, obviously. Now that makes sense, but so that they're more competitive, that makes the fishing better. And so a big key is to look for areas where there's more bass, obviously for the reason that there's more bass, but because they're more competitive. That makes all the difference. And I think I could catch 5 times as many fish in the areas where they're more competitive for the bait. And that was kind of the areas that I did catch them. That seemed to be what it was. They would eat the bait quicker because there was more bass, even not in the area, but just in a little group, a little school of them. They had more competition between each other to get it. And so I didn't find as many places that had a bunch of groups of bass like that to where they were competitive, but everywhere that I found that's where I caught most of the fish.